Hello everybody, welcome back to Steven's Fight Show, and in this video we're going to be talking about if Artur Beterbiev can become the undisputed light heavyweight champion. Beterbiev just came off of a good win against Joe Smith Jr., ending the fight by second round KO, and obviously all eyes are setting on Beterbiev to unify all the belts and become undisputed in the light heavyweight division. However, the road to becoming undisputed for Beterbiev is not as easy as it looks. There's a bunch of roadblocks that he needs to get through, and the other man on the other side, Beterbiev's dance partner, Dmitry Bivol, also has to get through a few opponents to get to Beterbiev. So in this video, I'm going to discuss the recent fight between Beterbiev versus Joe Smith Jr. and the mandatory challenger that is set to face Beterbiev, which is Anthony Yarde, and it looks like their fight will take place sometime in London, England on around October. I also want to discuss about Dmitry Bivol's chances of winning against Artur Beterbiev and what both men have to do to become the undisputed light heavyweight king of the division. So let's get into it. So Beterbiev versus Joe Smith Jr. happened around a week ago, which was on June 18th, and both men in the lead up to the fight looked like they were both ready to give the fans a great fight. And as the fight started, I felt like Joe Smith Jr. did well for half of the round. Joe Smith Jr. was using his jab to control range. He was trying to manage distance, sticking the jab in Beterbiev's face, trying to cut off the ring and control the fight with his jab. And it was working pretty well for half of the fight. However, Beterbiev came out in this fight like I have never seen him in any other fights. He was a lot more lighter on his feet, he was bouncing on his toes, moving laterally left and right, and he was able to start moving around the ring, avoiding any potential threat from Joe Smith Jr., and he was able to catch Joe Smith Jr. coming in a lot of the times. And there was a point during the round where Beterbiev caught Joe Smith around the temple area, and it looked like from that moment on, Joe Smith Jr. completely forgot what the game plan was and started to exchange against Beterbiev. And as he was trying to jab at Beterbiev, he was too close to land the jab, and even sometimes he would try to measure distance with his lead hand to see where he was at against Beterbiev, but Beterbiev, being the smart fighter that he was in this fight, was able to counter with so many overhand rights, uppercuts, hooks that Joe Smith Jr. was just not ready for. And on the other hand, Beterbiev used his jab well to close the distance. He was moving around the ring very well, and in any of his other fights, he has not moved the way that he moved in this fight, and it worked perfectly against Joe Smith Jr. In my opinion, he showed immaculate boxing ability. His counter shots and his timing were absolutely amazing. There would be so many times where Beterbiev wouldn't even really set up Joe Smith Jr. for a shot. Joe Smith would just walk straight into range and walk straight into a right hand, and eventually when the overhand rights kept landing, even though they kept landing, Joe Smith Jr. was aware of it. So another thing that Beterbiev is good at is punch selection. So as they were in the pocket, Beterbiev was changing up his looks. He was throwing uppercuts, hooks around the guard, body shots, throwing different shots at Joe Smith Jr. to try to create openings. And eventually he was able to break Joe Smith Jr. down and get the TKO finish in the second round. In my opinion, it was a great boxing performance by Beterbiev. It wasn't like he went out there and tried to go for the finish. He was patient while trying to look for the finish. He was making the necessary moves and changes and adjustments to try to unlock the finish. And in the end, he got it. And I felt like Joe Smith Jr. was fighting the wrong fight for the second half of the first round and a majority of the second round. So let's switch over to the man that is set to have his shot against Beterbiev, which is Anthony Yarde. Now Yarde is a tough contender at the 175-pound division. He is known for his speed, power, and being a pressure fighter. And Beterbiev, both him and Yarde, they both like to come forward. They like to exchange. They like to throw big shots. That's essentially their style, what they like to do. However, I believe if the fight ends up on the inside, where both fighters have to operate, I believe the fight should favor Beterbiev. The reason for that is because I believe Beterbiev is elite when it comes to breaking people down on the inside. If you watch the fight against Marcus Brown, he was cutting the ring off very well, throwing body shots, mixing up his combos, switching up his combinations to the body, to the head, landing shots precisely. And I'm not just talking about precisely on the face. He throws shots where he's able to land around your guard. And obviously he's a powerful guy, so he's more than capable of breaking your guard. And when that pressure starts to build up, he's able to finish you and get you out of there. Now Yarde is a guy that is a bit similar. His last fight against Lyndon Arthur, where he stopped him in the fourth round, in my opinion, he was brilliant on the inside. He was landing body shots, good uppercuts, good hooks, closing the distance to not allow Lyndon Arthur to operate with his jab jab like how he did in the first fight, and everything ended up well for Anthony Yarde. However, although Yarde has success fighting on the inside against Lyndon Arthur, I just don't see it being effective against Beterbiev. I think Beterbiev will be a lot sharper, he will be a lot stronger, a lot faster, and I think he will be able to create more damage against Yarde than Yarde will be able to create damage against Beterbiev. And the thing about Yarde is that he's primarily a pressure fighter, but he's not all that well moving backwards. Against Kovalev, where we saw Yarde face an old Sergey Kovalev, but he was more than capable enough to compete against Anthony Yarde, he was able to put Yarde on the back foot, and Yarde was not able to adjust to box accordingly against Sergey Kovalev. Not only that, Yarde typically has trouble taking away the jab. Even though he did it in his last fight against Lyndon Arthur, when you watch every single fighter that has a good jab against Yarde, they typically give him problems. And Beterbiev, in my opinion, can use his jab very effectively against Yarde. And Yarde is also more than capable of being caught the same way that Beterbiev caught Joe Smith Jr. In their first Lyndon Arthur fight, there were many times where Yarde was trying to close the distance, but even though Lyndon Arthur hurt his right hand, he was still able to catch Yarde with his right hand coming in a few times. In my opinion, Yarde needs to use his feints. He needs to change his levels, be in and out, move side to side, throw body shots to set up his punches. Because in the first Lyndon Arthur fight, he was able to catch Lyndon Arthur from the outside because of his feints, because of his setups, keeping Lyndon guessing and landing a bunch of big shots. And I can see him landing those shots against Beterbiev. And in this fight, I feel like Yarde has to do a bit of both. I feel like he has to operate from the outside, but also from the inside as well. But overall, my prediction is I think Beterbiev will be able to break Yarde down. I think he will be able to overwhelm him with his pressure, with his IQ, with his movement, upper body movement, inside fighting, outside fighting, etc. I think a stoppage will come around the middle or towards the end of the fight. Now let's talk about Dmitry Bivol's chances of beating Beterbiev to become the undisputed light heavyweight champion. Now stylistically, I believe Bivol is a bad matchup for Beterbiev. The reason for that is because I believe Bivol is very elite at keeping his distance against his opponent. Obviously, his last fight against Canelo Alvarez, he was able to use his jab and keep Canelo on the outside for a majority of the fight. And in my opinion, Beterbiev can be beat the same way Canelo got beat by Dmitry Bivol. If he can use his jab, keep him on the outside, keep his distance, use straight shots, because Bivol has very good straight punches. If he can use his length, his size to his advantage, outbox him from the outside, and avoid being on the pocket with Beterbiev, then I think Bivol can outpoint Beterbiev in a fight. Obviously, one of Beterbiev's best weapons is fighting somebody off the ropes, and Canelo also has that same ability, but he wasn't as effective with it against Bivol. And the reason for that is because Bivol has a great ability to stay off the ropes, and even sometimes when he would get caught on the ropes, he would always make sure to circle out and reset to the center of the ring to make sure his opponent can't follow up. I think Beterbiev will have his moments, will have his rounds, and he will have opportunities where he's able to catch Bivol with big shots, big body shots, big right hands, left hooks, uppercuts, etc. But ultimately, I feel like the entire fight will be controlled by the better man, which is Bivol. In my opinion, Bivol is also a better combination puncher than Beterbiev as well. Bivol has a great tendency to use head-body combinations against his opponent. He did it very well against Canelo, and even though Beterbiev might land the more powerful combinations, the more precise and the more accurate man, in my opinion, will be able to come out victorious in this fight, and that is Dmitry Bivol. Now, the road to undisputed for both men is a little different because, in my opinion, obviously they both have to beat their challenger, but Beterbiev, in my opinion, has an easier path because Beterbiev has a better chance to beat Yarde than Bivol beating Canelo again, because we know a rematch between Bivol and Canelo is only inevitable. And I don't think anybody is mentioning this, but there is a chance where this fight could potentially fall through, similar to AJ versus Fury. Fury obviously had to fight Wilder to become champ. AJ had to keep defending his belts until he ran into Usyk, where he lost to Usyk, and potentially if AJ beats Usyk, we might look at a trilogy between him and Usyk, and thus there is no AJ versus Fury fight. And the same situation can happen in this fight. fight. And like I said again, Bivol has the harder challenge in front of him. I certainly believe that he can beat Canelo again. Obviously, Canelo has to beat Triple G in his upcoming bout to face Bivol again, but for Bivol to beat Canelo for a second time, it's not going to be easy. To beat somebody that was once known as the pound for pound king in the entire world twice is not an easy thing to do. And you best better believe that Canelo will come through with adjustments. He will come through with a better game plan. He will make sure that he's ready. He'll also make sure that he's fit. So Bivol also has to make sure that he comes and he matches Canelo, which I think he will. But there is a chance that Canelo or Yard could disrupt the party. But anyways guys, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for listening to what I have to say, and drop a comment and let me know. Were you impressed with Beterbiev's performance against Joe Smith Jr.? Can either Yard or Canelo disrupt the undisputed party between Beterbiev and Bivol? And who do you have coming out victorious if the undisputed bout is made between Bivol and Beterbiev? Drop a comment and let me know in the comment section down below. Now, if you guys enjoy fight content that is related to boxing, MMA, kickboxing, or whatever it is, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel down below. I would really appreciate that. And other than that, it's been Steven signing out. Peace.